What's going on, guys? My name is Triforce Addiction. Welcome back to another legendary comparison video. So today we are going to be comparing which legendary skins are better, either the Fennec Venom Coil or the newly released Corrupted Light. So this was a long awaited video for the entire month because it has been quite a long time since the Fennec has received a legendary skin. Back in 2021 of October, we did get the Fennec Venom Coil. And this was kind of like this was really just released so that, you know, just in case anyone missed the, the mythic draw. This was some sort of like consolation for those that maybe wanted some legendary skin for the Fennec. I know like during that time, the Fennec wasn't really at its prime compared to now, but it was just there either way. But as for the Corrupted Light, this is something that, you know, even post nerf, you know, with the BSA and all that stuff, it's still a very solid weapon, so I'm assuming they had really no problem selling the Corrupted Light. So I don't really remember if I made a comparison video between the Venom Coil and the Ascended. I know that's probably like a really unfair comparison because those are in completely different leagues of their own. But, you know, since both of these are legendary skins, I think it would be a much more fair comparison. So anyways, we're going to start off with the Venom Coil, which is the first legendary to be released. Like I said, this came out around October of 2021, year 2. And this was actually one of those, I think it was like probably one of the first draws I actually considered dropping at first. Because yeah, I already had the Mythic Fennec for quite a bit during that time. And even then, the Fennec wasn't really the most reliable weapon because it was just extremely weak. Had a lot of recoil, had little to no range, and it just wasn't really worth using. But I picked it up anyways to do kind of like a comparison between the legendary and the mythic to see which one was actually better, even though we already knew what the obvious answer was. But the Fennec Venom Coil like still is a pretty good legendary on its own right. I would say even now the sound effects for the Venom Coil are far better than they were with the mythic. I mean, you could still kind of hear like the original weapon from the Ascended, and that's kind of like why sometimes I don't really like using it. I like using legendaries that have like different sound effects, you know, at times. So, you know, when the Venom Coil did come out, I did use this for quite some time. Not like 24/7, but like, you know, I pretty much bought the thing. Might as well just use it, right? Anyways, the physical structure of the weapon does look pretty cool. It does resemble the Fennec in many ways. The iron sight, I would say, is, I mean, it's a very complicated thing to say because we've kind of been spoiled by the Ascended since it has like more of a digital iron sight. But even for an iron sight on a legendary, it's still actually pretty good. I mean, anything that has like a spike in the middle and just less obstructing sides in the front, like I think usually is going to be a good seller. However, comparing it to the Corrupted Light, I mean, they're both kind of like on par with each other. If anything, they're kind of tied. It's really all about personal preference. But again, I mean, they more or less perform the same way, like no matter which legendary you use, like, you know, if you're just focusing solely on iron sights. As for the outer animations, this is something I really do like about the Fennec Venom Coil is the fact that it actually has a lot more outer effects than it does with the Corrupted Light. The Corrupted Light is more of a basic skin. I forgot to mention, actually, the Venom Coil is a reactive legendary skin, the ones that end with like 4700. So like the more kills you get, the more evolved it's gonna look. So obviously it's gonna have a little more, you know, better effects than the Corrupted Light since that one's more of a basic legendary. As for sound effects and death effects, the death effect is pretty cool. I mean, you know, they turn into like all these little DNA codes, like, you know, these helixes. As for the sound effects, I mean, yes, it is very unique in its own way, but I don't really think it kind of matches up to the Corrupted Light since that one has a lot more sound effects when it comes to reloading, when it comes to firing, and it's a lot more, I guess, pronounced. And some could say that this one is actually a little bit better than the Corrupted Light, but I would say that in terms of sound effects, I think there's probably more with the new one. So now moving on to the Corrupted Light, which is the brand new Fennec that got released yesterday. This one is quite a lot. There's quite a lot to unpack here because the Fennec Corrupted Light, obviously this came out in a more, I guess, modernistic time for Call of Duty Mobile, meaning that like most of the legendaries that get released now are far more better designed than they were maybe about 2 years ago. But anyways, let's actually talk about the physical design first. So this one I actually kind of made it go into first place, obviously because it's a lot more, I guess it looks a lot more thoroughly designed. You know, it's it doesn't really resemble too much of a Fennec. I mean, it still is, but like still, I would say like there's a lot more. It felt like there was a lot more work done. However, for the animations though, I would say that it's not really, you know, the best when it comes to that. And keep in mind, this is a non-reactive legendary skin, so it only kind of just flares up when you do get a kill. So it's nothing really crazy. It does have a lot of electric designs around the weapon. But in terms of like flashiness, I would say that the Venom Coil is a little bit better than the Corrupted Light. Of course, as for the iron sight, like I said earlier with the Venom Coil, they're kind of on par with one another. They have that one spike in the middle. The only difference is like the front iron sights it's more of a circle than a rectangle this time around. So it's not really something I could truly compare because it all really just goes down to personal preference. But if anything, they kind of perform the same exact way. So that's why in my personal opinion, I think they're tied. It could just really go both ways. But as for the firing sound, or I guess just gun sounds in general, this one I would say probably does beat the Venom Coil. And that's mainly because it's a lot more pronounced, and you know, even with suppress or non-suppress, it's very noticeable. And it's not to say that the Venom Coil is not noticeable at all. I mean, obviously it does have a completely different firing sound. But when it comes to other sounds like, you know, reloading or empty reloads, I would say that this one kind of reigns supreme because you could obviously hear it immediately. So finally, for the death effect, that's another thing that I would say that the Corrupted Light does have over the Venom Coil, which is basically it's not that simple death effect where you kill someone and they just kind of just blur out of existence. This one's a little bit more different. They get engulfed in flames and they turn into all these different spare parts that just fly all over the place. But again, this kind of goes back to how legendary skins are being a lot more evolved and a lot more creative this time around. So here are the final results for both legendary skins. So the Venom Coil and the Corrupted Light, in terms of physical design, I would say the Corrupted Light is far more unique in its own shape. That's why I decided to give first place. As for animations, I do find that the Corrupted Light is kind of lacking in that department, so I did give it to the Venom Coil, and given that it's also a reactive skin, obviously it's going to have a lot more, I guess, pizzazz. As for death effects, I did give first place to the Corrupted Light, obviously because of its uniqueness. It's not the classic enemy fading out of existence type of thing, so yeah, this one's a lot more unique in its own right. As for the sound effects, I also gave it to the Corrupted Light because, again, the sound effects are more pronounced, all the way down to the empty reload. So yes, it has a lot more different sound effects. As for the iron sight, I decided to kind of like, I guess, just give them both first place because, again, like I said, the iron sights are made in a way that they're kind of just similar to one another. So it doesn't really matter which iron sight you use. It's more or less the same feel. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this comparison video. Let me know which Fennec you favor most of all. But yeah, anyways, I'll see you guys next time.